Hey, Christy Mattoon here. Good morning. I'm from MindRewire, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about your mentality and what you can create. And is voodoo real? I'm actually going to read for you a little chapter out of an old Joe Dispenza book called The Placebo, Making Your Mind Matter. And it's just an interesting story about the effects that we can have on each other. And when you really believe something to be true, what can actually happen? And I'm going to tell you a couple of stories where I've actually seen this activated in real life. So what you think and what you think you can do are intricately intertwined. And if you really believe something about something, and I talked about belief in another video, in the tenses of like, what if you just got rid of all of your beliefs and you didn't believe anything and you kept your focus so intensely on that higher being, on source energy, on God? What would happen? Interesting to think about. Actually interesting to try and practice. So the story itself, oh, and by the way, subscribe if you haven't already. I always greatly appreciate that. So the story itself is from chapter 1 of the book, Are You the Placebo? And it's called Victory Over Voodoo. So in 1938, a 60-year-old man in rural Tennessee spent 4 months getting sicker and sicker before his wife brought him to the hospital at the edge of their town. By the time, his name was Vance Vanders. That was not his real name, so they changed his name to protect these guys. He had lost more than 50 pounds from his illness and appeared to be near death. The doctor suspected that Vanders was suffering from tuberculosis and possibly cancer, but repeated tests and x-rays came up negative, so they weren't finding anything. His distressed wife sought to speak to the doctor privately, swearing him to secrecy. He told him that her husband's problem was that he had been voodooed. It seems that Vanders, who lived in a community where voodoo was common practice, had gotten into an argument with a local voodoo priest. The priest had summoned Vanders to the local cemetery late one night, where he put a hex on him by waving a bottle of malodorous liquid in front of Vanders' face. The priest told Vanders that he would soon die and that nobody could save him. Wow. Vanders was convinced that his days were numbered, and he believed in his dismal future. So he returned home and refused to eat, where his wife eventually took him to the hospital. So the doctor heard this whole story, and then he came up with this really unorthodox plan, and I'm just kind of reading through this and giving you the bits and pieces. He summoned Vanders' family to the bedside and told them that he was certain he knew exactly how to cure the sick man. The family listened intently as the doctor went through this fabricated tale. And what he told them was that he had gone to the cemetery the night before and he tricked the voodoo priest into meeting with him and divulging how he voodooed how he voodooed Vanders. The doctor said it wasn't easy to get him to divulge the information, but he eventually had him up against a tree with his hand around his throat and choked him. So the priest gave him the information and told him that he had rubbed lizard eggs into Vanders' skin, and the eggs found their way into the stomach, where they eventually hatched. Most of the lizards had died, but one large lizard survived and was now eating him from the inside out. So that was the doctor's story to this dying man. And then he announced all he had to do was remove the lizard and the man would be cured. So then called in a nurse who brought him a large syringe filled with something that the doctor claimed to be powerful medicine. In reality, it was filled with a drug that induced vomiting. So he gave the man the syringe, the vomiting started, the guy was profusely throwing up for a period of time. At the point that the doctor thought he was about finished and the medicine had run its course, he went back into the room with a lizard in his hand, and as the guy was throwing up one of the last times, he slid the lizard into the vomit tray when nobody was watching, and then everybody was like, "Oh, there's the lizard!" And miraculously, the guy was cured. Now, how does something like that really affect excuse me, really affect you on a belief basis. If you're believing you're going to die because something somebody else said or did to you, and then suddenly you find out it's like you've gotten rid of the issue that they put inside of you, belief played the total role in this, right? So he changed his belief, and then all of a sudden was totally healed. He went home and lived a normal life. I have a situation from years ago with one of my one of my big brothers, and we were all asthmatics when we were growing up. We were told we all had asthma. We always were having issues breathing in and out of hospitals and doctors' offices, and always with the inhalers, like always craziness. And I still keep one handy to this day because we're burning fires and the smoke kind of revs my lungs up. So one of my brothers went into the doctor's one day, and this doctor looked at him after treating all of us. Apparently we were all standing there, and what my brother said was the doctor looked right at him, like deadlocked his eyes, and said, "You know you don't have asthma, right?" And then just kind of walked off. And Matt said he was stunned. He just kind of stood there and he was like, "Oh, I don't have asthma." And then he didn't for the rest of his life. Like, why didn't the doctor tell me that, first of all? That's what I want to know. So I keep playing with that idea, right? Somebody walked up to you and said you don't have that thing that you're so dead set and sure that you had or have, and it's probably because somebody else told you you do have it. This is an issue that you have. This is a problem that you have, and you're going to struggle with it consistently and continually for the rest of your life. And then they plot it out for you and tell you how the scenario is going to go. And then what do you find yourself doing? Especially in illness, you find yourself walking along that dotted path that they created for you. It's so crazy. And you can get into a situation where, you know, maybe you ate something or something happened or a car accident. Like, there's so many different ways the situation can start, but it will be perpetuated by what you believe in the next moment and every next moment that follows. So if I continue to believe, right, now we're redefining space and time, and you're redefining the dimensions that you live in. If I believe every next moment is going to be the same or worse than the last, what can it possibly be? It's going to be the same, or it's going to get worse. But if I believe, and I sit there and I'm like really honing in and focusing totally into this space where I'm not allowing myself to go there, eventually it has to start getting better. It can't continue to get worse, because that's how the energy works. That's how source energy works. And so if you keep your eyes and you keep your focus totally on that goal, on that, maybe it's health, maybe, you know, who knows, maybe it's your business prosperity, maybe it's, you know, maybe it's something else, maybe it's something with a kid or something, you know, a new house, maybe, who knows what it is. But if you keep your focus on it, eventually you'll start to see that thing happen. And it's no different with health issues. It's a little bit trickier because of the way our minds work. And when you feel something physically, it's harder to walk out of it. That's where it gets tricky. So if I want a house and I'm focusing in on that house and I'm totally honing into it, and that seems to work a little bit easier, it's because it's not part of your physiology. It is definitely outside of you. If I have, and I'll use my asthma as an instance, if I start having trouble breathing and I label it asthma, and I'm telling my physical body, and I know all the stuff about asthma. I grew up, I was born having an asthma attack. I've lived with it my whole life, so I know all the ins and outs of it. And if I tell myself and call it asthma, I go right back into the spin and spend months and months and months trying to get inflammation back out of my lungs. And I had a doctor down the street, right here where we live, not too long ago, a naturopath, tell me my asthma isn't asthma. And I was like, really? And she goes, no, it's not, it's sadness. Your asthma is not a lung issue, it's an emotional issue, and the emotion is sadness. And it's not even yours, it was your mother's from inside the womb. She goes, figure out how to get rid of that, and everything will change. And in the moment that we did that, she actually helped me move some of it, my asthma was gone for weeks. The second I got triggered back into a cycle with my mother, guess what happened? erupted again. And it didn't even happen because of my mother. It happened because of something else that's related to my mother. It's crazy how the mind works, and it holds on to all of this stuff. So in the moment when I notice that happen, what do? I sit down, I stop, I open up my heart, I get back into coherence. And I refocus my intention. I refocus my attention. I put all of my attention and awareness back into a space where that doesn't exist. And guess what happens? My lungs open back up and everything's fine. I'm good to go. If I hold that in a suspended state, that's when my lungs are healed. And that's when I no longer have to contend and fight with that issue. Does that make sense? So, figure out what the thing is, right? Whatever it is you're dealing with. Because for years I called the asthma, and it was a lung problem. Come to find out it's not asthma, it's sadness. It's an issue inside my lungs. It came from something my mother had probably grown up with herself, and the sadness that she carried into that pregnancy. It's interesting. It's so interesting to me. So I bless you in this. I hope this helps and gives you some ideas and maybe some ways to take your own journey, because I truly believe this. At the end of the day, it is your journey, and we are constantly seeking somebody else to come in and unlock our doors and open up our stuff and fix it for us. The best way that you can do this is learn how to do it and fix it yourself. And that's what I teach people how to do, is how do you sit there and put your focus and energy and effort into a place that you want to be, allow the neurotoxins and the neuropeptides of negative emotions to clear out of your system so that you can ultimately change and become the person that you want. A healed, healthy, happy, whole, beautiful, wonderful person. And when you can do that, that's when all of a sudden the reality around you changes and everything gets bigger and better. I love you in this. I hope this helps. If you want personal private help from me, let me know. Contact me at Christy at MindRewire.com, or go to my website and click that link. There's one right at the top of the page, and I'll drop it right below this video too, where you can go and get a free call with me and just talk to me for a few seconds, and we'll see if what I do is right for you. That's the biggest deal, is we got to be a good match to work together, and this has to be a good match for you. So you have to be at a certain place kind of in your journey already. So anyway, I bless you in this. Thank you for being here.